This is your 23 liter size. So that's 5 Canadian gallons. This is 19 liters, which is 5 American gallons. And this is 12.5 liters, which is half of this. It's good to have a different selection of them, especially when you're making mono grapes, because as you're racking and your quantities start going down, you want to keep them full. So you might go from one of these to one of these. If you're going to make dessert wines, then you need one of those. I like to use these plastic milk crates because it's really easy to move them around. If you start picking these up and setting them down on the concrete, if you hit them on the edge, they'll break, and you're going to cry because there'll be wine everywhere. So that's your 23, your 19, and your 12.5. These are the 23s are what you want for kits, because that's how much your kit makes is 23 liters. And out of that you get 30 bottles approximately. Now as you start racking, this level is going to go down because you're going to have sediment. Now you don't want to add water to it because that's going to dilute your wine. So there's things that you can do to that. You can get marbles that are clean, and you can add marbles in there to bring it up to the right level. Or if you have the same wine in your wine cellar, you can just open a bottle of that and top it up, which is normally what I do. And if you're dealing with whites, you can always get away with doing a little bit of a blend on them, and reds you definitely can. Or you just use the same wine that you've got in your wine cellar. And you could even buy a commercial one to do it. You're probably only going to lose maybe 1 to 2 bottles during the whole process. That's okay, it's the water pump from the heat, from the condensation. So yeah, so you're only going to lose maybe 1 or 2 bottles out of there through the whole process. Okay, so those are your carboys. Easy to clean. Whenever I use these stoppers on the top, so when I'm finished with that carboy, I clean it using the solution. This is Diversol. Put a little bit of that in there, and if there's anything stuck to the sides of that carboy, you put a little bit of this in there with a funnel, and you shake it up, and you dump it out, and it's instantly clean. And then it's ready for use. So I use these Camden tablets, and once I've cleaned it really good, I put 2 of these in there, and I leave a little bit of water in the bottom of it. You see? That sulfite solution. So with that sulfite solution in there, I'll open this up. Don't take too big of a smell.
Stuff burnt my lungs last.
Okay, so it's really sulfury. That stops any bacteria from growing in your wine. So when those are stored, it's already been cleaned, and I store it like that with the stopper in there. When I go to make wine again, all I have to do is rinse that out put a bottle washer on it, rinse it out, and it's ready to have wine go into it again. You never want to store these dirty because they're really hard to clean once they're dirty. But if you clean it right away after it's had wine in it, and then you put it away clean, you're not going to have any issues with it. This here is a bottle washer. It just screws onto your tap. Now, if you've got a laundry sink or something, it probably has a fitting like that on the laundry sink. These will just screw right onto your laundry sink, like a laundry tub, and it works really good. So when you turn this on, hold your hand over the top. When you turn on the water, because sometimes a jet of water will shoot just a little bit, and it'll shoot up to the roof. Yeah, or right into your face if you're looking at it. So just hold your hand on it when you turn the water on, and then it's got a little tiny valve in there. When you open that up, you can see the hole. Goes through, and then when you close it. Okay, so that when you push the bottle onto here or the carboy down onto there, that opens it up, and the water shoots out, and it sprays all the inside of your bottle and rinses it out. We're going to do this one the last week last week of the course. We bottled the wines. So keep them clean and store them clean, and then you won't have any issues.
Is it bad to clean them with a detergent or something? Would it do something?
Don't use
That's a good
soap.
question.
Never use dish soap.
Never use
We'll talk about that in another course.
Okay.
It just takes a speck of that dish soap to get into your wine, and your wine is going to taste soapy. It's horrible. Never use. So this is the cleaner that I use. Trevor, what do you use? What's your stuff?
PBW, powdered brewer's wash. There's an acid blend. You can use sulfite and citric acid. There's
Sulfite and citric acid. What's that?
Acetox?
Yeah, that's probably out there too. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of different cleaners. I use this one. This one's a really powerful one. You got to be careful you don't really get this on your clothes because it does have chlorine in it, so it could bleach your clothes if you're using high quality clothes with it. I don't know, like stuff like that. But I like that because it cleans all that sludge and stuff out of your carboys instantly. Like if you've got like a red film on the inside of your carboys from wine, and you put that in there, you just give it one little shake and it's crystal clear. It's done. Yeah.
But rinse.
Yeah. Yeah. All that stuff you want to rinse it all out.
Hot water.
Yeah.
Cold water rinse won't get it all out.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to use hot water. Okay. So this is your primary fermenter. When you get one, it's not going to have this line on it. Okay. It's just going to be here. So what you do is you got a 23-liter carboy. You fill your 23-liter carboy right up to the top of the neck, like right to there. Because that's where your wine level should be. Smaller. That's where they should be filled to, is right here. Okay? You don't want it down here, that's too much air. And if you fill it up past that, then your stopper, you don't not have a big enough air gap in there, and any temperature change, you're going to start shooting the wine up through all around your room. Because it does come out of there like a jet. So you fill it up to there, you pour it into here, and you mark your line with a felt pen. Okay?
You can get the Essentia primary from Hamilton Hops, and it's graduated.
Some have, yeah. Some are graduated already, but some don't. If you get one that doesn't, just mark it yourself. If you get one that's already been marked, test it first.
No, the Essentia is actually graduated from 5 liters to 30.
Yes, I know. Yeah, but I'm saying if you get one that's already been marked by somebody else,
Oh yeah.
make sure you check it because sometimes somebody would have said, "Oh, just measure up 12.5 inches and you put a line there and that's good." So you're either not going to have enough water in there, or worse, you're going to have too much in there. So when you put your kit in there, the kit's going to come up to about here or so. That's a 14-liter kit, so yeah, probably about here. And then you're going to fill it up to there with water. But we'll do that next week. Okay, those are your bubblers. I'll just pull one out here that's put together. So these are your bubblers. I like the number 7 stopper on them. I've used 6, they come with 6.5s as well. A 6.5, I find a 6.5 is a little bit too small, and I've actually jammed them right in and then they get stuck inside and they're a bear to pull out. So I prefer the number 7s, but that's a personal preference for me. So when you're putting water in them, you're going to put water into up to about there. So it covers this, so it's going to allow the pressure from here to blow out, and it'll come up the middle, up that tube in the middle, and it'll go down to the water, and then it'll push up, and it can come through those little holes there and bubble out. And then when it's stopped fermenting, this thing sits down flush, and you have water up to there, so bad stuff can't get in here through the water level into the wine, and it stops oxygen from getting in there too. So these are really important to have.
I'll use sanitizer in there. Potassium metabisulfite or the acid sanitizer, and that way if you ever get a fruit fly in there, it's not going to get acetobacter into your wines.
Yeah.
So,
And we'll talk about that next week. So in your books it's called Wine Log. We haven't talked about that yet. You're going to get one of these sheets here. This is the back of it. It's two-sided, so the first part of it has, I keep a wine journal, so I always keep track of everything that I'm doing. So you've got these same book or same forms. So one of the reasons we gave you a 3-ring binder with this is you can actually use this for your wine journal eventually too, your binder. So I gave you 10 copies of this in the book, in the binder, and we have also sent you that by electronic copy today. So you save that and you can print them out yourself on your printers. And if you work somewhere that's got a printer, you get them for free, right, Esther?
You read my mind.
So this is how we'll fill these out when we get started tomorrow. We're going to fill this out with all the information on here, with our initial specific gravity, the type of yeast we use, and everything else. And then on the back, it's got these handy tables in here for sulfite additions and everything else, and we'll talk about that tomorrow as well. So what Trevor talked about is putting some sulfite solution in there. So there's 2 different solutions in here that I make up. There's a 2.5% solution. That's your general purpose one that you'd use in your bubblers and that sort of thing. And then when I'm doing wine making, I use a 10% solution, so I don't water down the wine as much. It's just a stronger solution. So you'll have those in your book as well. So we've got the bubblers here. This here is used for testing your specific gravity. And this is your hydrometer here. So if you look at your hydrometer, okay, that's 1, and that's 0.990. So if you put this in there with water at 20 degrees Celsius, that's what it's calibrated for, and you set that in water, in this here, if you fill this up with water, you put that in there, it would come up right to that 1.00 level. That's water. Fully fermented wine is going to be halfway between here and here. If it's not fully fermented, it's going to be up in this range up in here, and that means it's got residual sugar in there. When you first start off, you're going to be, for your white wines, you're going to be pretty much around this level here. So it'll be floating up about that high. So instead of being down here, it's going to be floating up here. As your fermentation goes on and your alcohol starts to form, the sugars will drop down, so that's creating your density in the water. The sugars will be eaten up and converted to alcohol, and this will slowly start sinking further and further and further. And then once it gets in between there and there, that tells you your fermentation is complete. On the opposite side here, on one other part of the scale, it shows you what your potential alcohol is. So most of your red wines are going to be around the 14 to 15% alcohol, and your whites are 12 to 13% typically. Okay, so you can sort of look and see where you're at. Once you start making wine, or if you're making fruit wine or something, you want to keep, for fruit wine, like if you're going to make a fruit wine, you want to keep your alcohol on the lower side. So you want to be around the 11% on fruit wines. If you go higher on fruit wine, you're going to get drunk quicker, but the problem is you're going to lose all your fruit flavors. So the alcohol will suppress your fruit. So the whole idea with fruit wines is you want a nice fruity wine. So you want to keep your alcohol a little bit lower. Just drink more of it if you want to get drunk. God, he's just going, I got to make notes of this. Okay, this here is your thermometer. And it floats, okay? And it's just your basic thermometer, okay? This is a handy thing to have. And you need this for rehydrating your yeast to get the right temperature. It's also good for checking your must temperatures, especially with your red wines, with your grapes. Because if your temperature starts getting too high, you got to do something to cool it down, or else you're going to have problems. And your fermentation will just run away. If your temperature gets too high with your reds, your fermentation is only going to last 3 or 4 days. You're going to end up with not a very good wine as a result. So you want to manage your temperatures, and the wineries have a really good job doing this. Home winery is a bit more challenging because we don't have great big huge massive stainless steel tanks with glycol cooling coils in them.
Does it float?
This does float, yeah. So you can take this and put it into a 50-gallon barrel of stuff, and it's not going to sink to the bottom at all. No, now what do we do? Yeah, so floating thermometer.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple other things we got here is, I'll grab one of mine here. So this is your racking one. Now, the ones that they normally sell you, they're smaller gauge than this. It's a catch-22. The smaller ones are easier to manage, especially for beginners, but the racking takes longer. When you start doing larger volumes of wine, you want to get a bigger one. These things are cheap. Like it's $10. It's $5 for this and $5 for the hose. So they're not expensive to buy. When you're starting off, go with a smaller one, and it looks like. Don't want that one outside anyway. They're half this thickness here.
Same gauge as the filler.
There you go. Yeah, right here. Same gauge as this. So there's a difference in size.
Same length though, as well?
They're the same length, yeah. So when you're racking wine, there's two ways you can do it. There is, oh, they're outside too. Oh, there's the thin one. So yeah, you can see they're the same length. This is your bottle filling wand. So it's got a little valve in there. So when you push it down, the wine will flow. When you pull it up, the wine stops. It's a little check valve. You're gonna get lots of practice with that on week 6, especially doing 2 kits. That's gonna be a little. We might have to start a little bit earlier that day, and it's gonna run a little bit later. Okay, so this the way I like to start it, you can get the priming pumps that will. You just basically connect this to the pump, and then you pull up on it, and it primes this, but it slows it down. So I don't use that because I'm always in a big rush. What I do is I put this into the carboy. Put it in there. If you've got a lot of sediment, I use a little wooden clothes peg to hold it up off the bottom so it's not down all the way. I'll put it there to get it started. And then I lift that up like that. And I suck on it until I get wine up to about here, okay? And then I stop suck, and then I plug the end, and I put it down, and put it into the carboy that and then the wine will start to flow. What'll happen, you'll get a little bit of an air bubble happening up here. And all you do for that is you just squeeze it and let it go, and the bubble will go all the way through. You don't want the air bubble staying up there because that's aerating your wine. So you want to get rid of that air bubble, and then you'll have a solid stream going all the way down. You'll get practice doing that. What I'll do then, as soon as if I'm going to be bottling wine, what did I do with it? What did I do with that bottled one?
It's up there somewhere.
That's the skinner.
Oh, there it is. So once you get it going, I usually put this into a measuring cup. And I'll twist it like that. And you just stick that into there, put that into a bottle, and start filling. And then what I do is I'll fill the bottle, put all my cleaned up in here so it's. You put it in there, and the wine will start slowly coming up. When it gets up to about there, you pull that up, and when you pull this out, now the level in the bottle is gonna go down. And all you do is you take this, if you tilt this to the side, it'll get it to flow slowly. So you just take that and twist it to the side, and it will fill it up until you get up to about there, and then you pull it out. But you'll get lots of practice doing that on week 6.
I would suggest, for beginners, to get the thin ones, not that big a tube,
Yeah.
because the area of mistake is so narrow.
Oh yeah. If you start overflowing bottles, there's wine flowing everywhere, you start to panic, and it's just a mess. It's just a horrible mess. So yeah, so when you're starting off, go with the thin ones. And when you get to the point of going, geez, this is taking forever. I wish this would be a little bit quicker, and you're not spilling wine all over the place. Go with this. You can go up to the bigger one. But yeah, showing this
Really well is to get one of those short trays, the tote boxes, little
Oh, yeah.
skinny ones.
Yeah.
Put your 30 bottles in there, and then you don't care if you spill.
Yeah. You just take the bottle, use that to fill up your glass again.
And if you use the small bottle filler, it's almost perfect when you get it right up the top and you lift it up and take it out. That's almost the exact amount for a cork.
Yeah.
so you don't have to think.
When you're trying to figure out how much wine to put into the bottle, there's your cork. You hold the cork up there and you want to leave about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch below there for your wine level from the top. So that would be like the perfect level for your wine right there. These corks come in different lengths, so I can't just say measure this far down because it's different for your. If this is a shorter cork, they make longer corks too, and they make them shorter. So the other thing you're going to need, this is a wine thief. You'll need this for checking your specific gravity because you can't always just drop your hydrometer into here. You can at first.
It's in the cylinder.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Trevor. When you first put it in, if you got it, it's really high, it's going to float up here. You're going to be no problem. You can still probably, but it makes it hard to read through here. But when it's up to here, it's going to sink down there. You're never going to get that thing out of there. So you have to take the wine out of there first. You push this down. Don't push it down too quick. Slowly, because it's got a small hole here, and the wine has to fill this thing up. So you push it in slowly, because if you push it in too quick, all the wine's going to squirt out. You push it down, and then once you got it down far enough, or down to here, and the wine's up, you can see the wine level up into there now. You put your thumb over there, you pull it out there, and it's going to hold the wine. When you release it, it's going to fill this up with wine. So once you have your wine in there, you can put your hygrometer in and check your specific gravity. This should be cleaned each time. You should clean it after you've used it and then clean it before you use it again. And then you can check your specific gravity. If the wine is fermenting, it's going to start forming bubbles on here. So what you have to do is you have to spin this. That'll spin the bubbles off and then read it fairly quickly. Because what will happen is if you're looking at it and then all of a sudden it'll start to float up higher because the air bubbles will attach to here. CO2 bubbles will attach and it'll start lifting this up higher. And then once you record it, you measure your specific gravity, you can record it, and you can pour that back in there. Put your bubbler back in. Okay, that's your hygrometer, thermometer. This is your bottle sulfider. So all this is basically a little pump. You put your sulfite solution in here. I use 2.5% sulfite for sterilizing my. I clean my bottles with that Diversol, then I rinse them really well, and then I squirt some of the sulfite into them, and then I put them on my bottle rack and just let them dry, or drip dry, or drip. And then once they drip once I've got them all on there, then I just take them and sort of dump out any excess. I put them down, and I leave the sulfite in there. You don't rinse the sulfite out, because that's going to help protect your wine as well. If you rinse the sulfite out with water, you've totally destroyed your sterilization. Because the sulfite is sterilizing. If you dump it out and you rinse it, now you've got the bacteria from the water back again.
Right.
So all you do there is you dump some of that sulfite solution into here, you fill this up to a certain point, and you don't need that much, up to about there. And then you take this and you push it down, and you have to prime these. The first few times you got to pump it a few times to get it going, but then once it starts squirting up, then you don't have to do it anymore. And it'll shoot, when you push it down, it shoots up a spray into the bottle, and it just coats the whole inside. And you can do it one or two pumps, and that's all you need to do. Then you take it and put that on your bottle tree. And this is your bottle tree right here. And then at that point now, once you've got all your bottles, so I'd start them off over in the far sink there. I get the sulfite or the pink solution in there. I clean them. I'll rinse them on this side here, and then I'll have this part sitting here. And I sulfite them and put them back on the tree, and now they're ready to put wine into bottle. This is a good brush to have. This usually comes with the kits. If you buy a whole kit, if you buy it used, almost everybody has these two because they came with a kit initially. This can go in there. If you get really stubborn parts in there, you can use this to scrub the inside. These things bend, so if you have to bend it to get to a certain spot, you can. And the stirring spoon is really useful. It's more useful used this way than it is this way. Because this way it's okay for stirring stuff up in your primary, but a lot of times you're stirring stuff up in your carboy. And to do that, you just put it in like this, and you do like that, and it'll get the whole thing swirling around like a little vortex, and it stirs whatever you have to put in there, it stirs it into the wine. So it's useful both ways. Any questions?
Particular water that you use?
No, tap water. Just tap water. So yeah, just regular water. And if you really wanted, if you had in an area where you had issues with water and you had some concerns, you could use distilled water for doing your sulfite rinsing, because that's the stuff that's going to stay in the bottle. It's going to rinse out any of those other impurities in there, and that sulfite solution is going to go in there and clean it out.
We were on a tour with Island Brewing, and their brewers there said that they just use straight tap water.
Yeah, perfect. But it's not really that important.
Okay.
You want your wines, we're going to be balancing, even on the kits, I made this kit already that we're going to make out of the Sauvignon Blanc, and I'll go, you guys want the red too? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'll go pick up a nice red. Any particular varietal?
Well, it had Cab Sav in the book.
I can do Cab Sav, we can do a Syrah, whatever you want, like you.
I like them all. I'm not kidding.
Any preference?
Cab
Sav?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do a Cab Sav. Look at a nice one. I can't remember what I was going to say now. So we'll end up doing the bottling and everything else on the last day there.
Right.
And as far as water, it's not that critical. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. So I made this kit already, and I found that both me and Mary were both master wine judges. So we tasted it before we bottled it. Mary says, I would like a little bit more acid to it. So we added a little bit more acid, and it made a major difference in that wine. So we added only 0.7 grams per liter of wine to the wine, but it made a big difference in the aroma profiles. And the funny thing about acid is it's got like it tastes acidic in your mouth, but it has no real flavor to it, and it has no real aroma. But when you add it to the wine, it changes the aroma profile of the wine significantly. Yeah, it's really weird how it works. So yeah, so we'll be playing with that as well. And the red one, we'd add some tannin to it.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, I think the carboys that I have at home are that size. Is that going to be a problem for kids if you're saying that it should be that size? Like, is it?
No, because what I do, no.
Okay.
So we've talked about how we recommend you doing kits. I don't like using these things.
Okay.
In fact, I don't use them. All I use that for is for getting my initial volume. And actually, in fact, I don't even really do that either. I'm cheap. Because what I'll do is I'll use a 23 liter one. I have gallon jugs. Now it says it needs oxygen to get the yeast to ferment, but when you're blending, you're adding water to it, and you're adding the kit in there, you're splashing it through a filter or a funnel and everything else. It's already getting enough oxygen in there, and you're going to have an air gap in there. So what I do is I fill it up to the 23 liter mark, up to here, and then when I've added all the stuff in there, and I've added the yeast in there, and I top it up with water, and then what I'll do is I take some of it out, and I put it into the gallon jug. So I'll take this down to about there, and the gallon jug will be sorry, Lori.
That's okay.
So I take this down to about there, and I put some in the gallon jug, so the gallon jug's there. So they gotta both have a good air gap on it. I put bubblers in it. Now I'm in glass. I don't have to worry about any contamination in my plastics. And I get a nice clean fermentation that happens in there. Then once it's finished fermenting, and I rack it, then they both get blended back together again. That's how I do my wine in my kits. They recommend that you stay in here because it gives you more air contact, but it also gives you more chances of problems.
Right.
So you guys can do it however you want. That's just how I do it. And how do you do it, Trevor?
It depends. Most of the time I'll be using one of the primaries.
Yeah. And Sean?
I use both, but I make sure I clean it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we did mention that you can't have any oxygen in the wine. But what Rick just said is that during the lag phase, the yeast requires oxygen. So if you're reading through on some of the materials, like to say, make sure you stir it well, or oxygenate the must. That's so the yeast can reproduce in its lag phase. That's that 24 hours before it starts to bubble and churn around. So
Yeah, when it's building its population up to the critical mass.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
thing about kits. So we're talking about making, artisan wine kits and, making really good wine. You don't need to. You can get kits in, I had a sheet here, with a 4 liters, 7 liters, 9 liters,
Yeah.
11 liters, 14, and you can actually get jugs of juice that
You
are
get white
full,
pills of juice,
full
full
23
23 liters
liters.
of juice.
Right. So you can go up to like Bowen Drugs in Nanaimo, or Flying Fish has some. They're $40, and you can get berry flavor and pina colada flavor and whatever. It's really low cost, low risk, and you basically make alcoholic Kool-Aid. It's pretty good, and it's a really good way to start to learn how to do the kits, because they're not $150.
No.
Right.
And you can get those like the summer spritzers that'll be like a
Yep.
Chardonnay and blueberry flavor, or
Yep.
strawberry, Chardonnay strawberry or something like that. They're those fruity drinks that are perfect out on the patio. You got a bunch of girls coming over and they all just want to have something to drink out in the patio.
With ice cubes.
With ice cubes.
Perfect.
They're perfect for that. And they're not going to be very expensive to make.
Yeah.
And the more of the stuff that you make, the better you're going to get at it too.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well make a mistake on a cheap kit than you are going to be on a high end kit.
I haven't had one of those fail.
No.
Those like $40. It's 19 liters of water
Yeah.
with a bucket of sugar.
Yeah.
And some of them even have flavor packs that you pour in because there's nothing to them.
Yeah.
So you're just basically fermenting sugar water. And
So what we're showing you is we're showing you the higher end kits
to make wine.
to make wine. Okay, but if what Trevor's talking about, those summer spritzers and that sort of stuff, yeah, they're quite affordable to make, and
You're at $1 a bottle.
yeah. Whereas this stuff here is what $5 a bottle.
Yeah.
Right.
And great.
This one here is going to be equivalent to about a $20 bottle of wine at the liquor store.
And when you go to grapes, you're running around $8 to $15 a bottle, depending on how crazy you get with your grapes.
Yeah. But then you're making wine that's up to like your
40.
$50 bottle of wine.
Right.
So there's lots of options.
I hope you're enjoying our instructional videos on winemaking for beginners. We have a number of different videos in this series for you to be able to watch. If you're interested in watching those, please click on this little box up here. And when you click on that box, that's going to take you to our playlist of the whole series in this winemaking class. So if you click on that box, that's where it's going to take you. And if you do like our videos, please like each video and click the subscribe button to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps our channel to grow, and we appreciate your support.